Hey, it's Jack Ellison with the 10,000 Sales Calls podcast. Special guest this week, Mark Feldmeier with Fas-Trak Industries. Mark, thank you very, very much for joining me today. I appreciate it, buddy. How you doing?
Fantastic. Glad to be on and looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, you and I have known each other for 10 plus years, I guess. You've been doing some pretty interesting things your whole career, and I want to go through that and kind of some of the selections of products you offer through Fas-Traks. But I always start the podcast off with really introducing people. This is kind of a quasi sales call. We're not trying to sell anybody, or maybe we are trying to sell somebody on something, but it's more about introducing you, your organization, and then really taking a dive on some new technology that you've got out there, as well as some old standing technology I think is great. But tell the audience, if you wouldn't mind, Mark, how did you get into the business of cleaning?
Well, when I was 16 years old, a friend of mine from high school said my dad has this office building and that he's looking for custodial workers. Would you be willing to work after school? So I jumped in the cleaning business when I was 16 years old, cleaning part-time in commercial Class A office buildings. And then my brother Ken started a cleaning supply business 40 years ago. So it's been in my blood for a long time. So that's how I got my start. And then I've been in it ever since. And it's been a great experience. I've learned a lot. I've seen a lot of change with the industry. So yeah, we started the business 23 years ago with an idea and a concept to kind of change the paradigm of how things are done. So that's kind of my background. So I've been in the business for 40 plus years.
Your whole career. Yeah, I kind of same way. I tell the story. I got into my first job, I think I was 12, I was cleaning my mother's beauty shop down the street, making $3 a cleaning. So I think it gets in our blood, and whatever reason we do it. But so Fas-Trak was started. What year was it?
We started in the year 2000. Yeah, we started at the turn of the millennial, and we bought a patent from a gentleman, and then went through a series of engineering changes, and we're still in business after 23 years. We've had a lot of companies try to I'll use the word knock us off, but we feel the leaders in our specialty. That's for sure. So that's
Now you said you wanted to shift the paradigm a little bit about the industry overall. And again, there's a big shift going on, and we'll talk about that as we start talking about some of your products and solutions. But what did you see in 1999 before you started the company in 2000? What did you see out there that didn't jive with you, or you felt there was a need for your company to be started? What did you see out there?
We started with an idea for applying coatings and floor finishes and restorers, and the only thing that was out there was basically the mop and the bucket. And I believe there was a device. I'm drawing a blank. That held a tank. It was a gravity-fed device, and that device was the only device that was out there to automate that very arduous process of putting down multiple coats of finish and coatings. So we said there's got to be a better way. So we came up with the Fas-Trak, which was our first generation unit, and that's something that we started with. It was a mechanical unit that actually you put a pail or a box on this unit and you pull it, and then what would happen is it would actually create like a centrifugal force, and it would pump liquid to the floor, and then it would spread it out. So that's when we started 23 years ago. And then obviously in 23 years we are on generation 4, and we actually perfected this particular application device. And we've also had to adapt it to the changes, because back in 2000, nobody was doing any type of specialty work. It was predominantly just floor finish being applied on VCT and terrazzo and stone. And now, 22 years later, we've seen a change. So we had to adapt our design and our engineering to be able to apply some of these hybrid chemicals. I'll use the word densifier. You may be familiar with that, Jack. It's also known as a hardener. So in some instances, like with a lot of large retail customers, if you go into, let's say, a Walmart or a Home Depot, you'll notice that there's no more tile. It's just concrete. So we've had to adapt our engineering to be able to use our machine to apply those types of different specialty chemicals. I call them construction chemicals to these concrete surfaces. So we've seen an evolution and a change. So the unit has actually evolved to be able to use it for a plethora of different types of chemicals. And then we also added the spray system to the UltraTrack Plus to be able to use it for spray applications. So some folks are spraying down waterborne dyes and stains and things of that nature. So we've really evolved and have stayed very close to the flooring industry, and we'd like to think that we're the leaders in that industry.
Yeah, that's where I met you. I think it had to be shortly after you started the company. I was with another chemical company at the time, but that the whole premise on that is those people, and again, I'll put on the show notes. I'll flash up on the screen as well. The Ultra Tracks, which I know the Plus, but describe that whole value. Those are people who are still slinging mops, putting finish down, putting any kind of densifier down, whatever it may be. But talk about, because this is where you get into the ISSA, time studies and all that. But the digital mop, you're putting down how many square feet an hour roughly with floor
Well, we
finish?
can go anywhere from 20 to 30, 35. Because, and the reason I say there's a fluctuation because we have three different size heads, so we can interchange or interplay the heads to the base unit. So you buy the base unit, and then we can basically put whatever size head we want to put on there. So let's say in an educational market, you have a lot of classrooms, and you need to get in and out of those classrooms. You would use a 28-inch head, so you can go
Yeah,
right into the classroom unencumbered, apply a coat of finish in a classroom in 1 minute, pull up the head and move it to the next classroom and do a second room. We actually did 28 classrooms in an hour in 5 minutes up in Appleton, Wisconsin, about 9 years ago. So it's really about efficiencies. It's about planning. It's about ROI. It's about what is the total cost of ownership for a floor. And a lot of that, as you know, is related to labor. It's not necessarily the price of a chemical. I
yeah,
mean, I won't get in too deep into the chemical side of things, but as the chemicals are important, but it's really understanding the cost of ownership on a floor. And oftentimes, what I've found and I've seen firsthand, and we don't endorse anybody's chemistry, we are chemically agnostic. Love chemicals. You believe whatever you want to believe, whatever brand it is, but at the end of the day, you can put down your chemical of choice with our device. But it's having the efficiencies built into it that really impacts the total cost of ownership. And most people, what I've found, candidly, is that I don't have enough time, right? So I usually do
yeah.
three coats. I'll hear this in the next 3 months, right? A lot of schools, they'll strip out and they'll put two or three coats on and think that they've solved their problem. In reality, they didn't. They just put a patch on it. So in order to really get to that point where you have to build, I call depth of gloss, you have to make sure you have enough efficiencies and you're putting enough coating on that floor to make that floor last as it's intended. And then you have all the chemical free oscillating technology that's out there that you're very familiar with. So there's some different dynamics that are at play, but at the end of the day, you have to work smarter, not harder. And you know what? And there is like you're going to have people that are going to push back because they don't want to change, right? And
Sure.
that's a whole different conversation we can have from a different vantage point. But yeah, we've had a lot of experience in a lot of different vertical markets, and realize that if people are open to change and being more competitive, you have to change. And once you learn the change and you understand it, it's really less work for that person because nobody wants to be stripping floors out like they used to back in the day, as you know. In the old days, you go back 20 years ago. I was in a grocery store. They'd strip that grocery store out 4 times a year. It was, and I seen it firsthand. It was like, you got to be kidding me. It's brutal. But
Yeah.
again, things are changing, and I think we have to adapt and change to the flooring trends that I've seen for the last 23 years.
Yeah. Absolutely. So 25 to 35,000 square feet an hour, which is phenomenal. And again, compare that to the mop bucket. What is the mop bucket at?
Yeah, it's about
Again,
yeah.
remind
According
me,
to ISSA, it's about 4,000. Yes.
4,000
Yeah.
square feet. So at least
Yeah.
6x
Exactly. Yeah.
time wise, productivity wise. And that's the thing, Mark. We can talk about the industry all day long. I know you're big in the schools. I know you're big in the healthcare, big in the environments where you have the ability to get this machine in and really get some speed behind it, for lack of a better word. But when you start thinking about the schools, I think we've had this conversation before, but the schools are being pressed harder and harder every year, budget wise, right? Less labor. It's hard to find labor, first of all, less labor. And what a lot of these schools are doing as well, they hold back on putting the floor finish down until the final 2 or 3 weeks before the school starts, just because the necessity of it all is these schools are having camps throughout the year. They're tearing the school up. They're getting it back to where it needs to go, but they're also tearing it up right until the 11th hour. And then when they put the floor finish down, they want to make sure it looks good. But as you said, having to go in there and strip that floor down and then, have a week or two to put, 25, 30, 40, 50 classrooms down, putting the floor finish down, enough coats to kind of warrant. There's just not enough time. It's a race. It's a race to not having a successful kind of launch to the school. Again, it looks good the first 2 or 3 weeks, but after a month or so, you start to wear on that one or two coats you were able to get down. But talk about some of the successes you've seen with, you just said you put down, X number of rooms in an hour, but within the different environments, what do you see out there that you're just overly proud of that you've brought to the table through the Ultra Tracks? And again, I'll put a video up of it operating, but what are some of the biggest things you've seen guys say, wow, I never thought about my time like that, or I've never thought about my
What I
labor?
think I've seen a lot is, as you know, our industry is grain, right? So you have a grain industry, and people are, they're not what they once were 25 years ago. So just to be able to get behind the machine and pull it, not have to worry about bending over, up and down and squeezing, and then you do a figure eight, you're heavy, you're medium, you're light. So I think the biggest takeaway is the ease of use, and again, it puts down a flawless coat because once you set the selection on our dial, it gives you a very even application. So in other words, if Jack walks fast and Mark
Yeah,
walks a little slower, it doesn't matter, right? So we're not telling somebody to walk at 2.3 miles an hour. It doesn't matter because it's all based on distance, not speed. So having the
sure.
control and ease of use is huge. Not having to be bending over and squeezing over. I think I heard it said that an 8-hour shift on a mopping operation equates to about a lifting of 2,000 pounds of weight
Wow.
up and down off of the bucket. That's 2,000 pounds. And then it doesn't talk about you have to swing, right? So with us, you just walk, and
Sure.
it's so people really love the ease of use. I shouldn't say this, but I will. There's also a savings of chemical because there is no waste. When we get done, we simply pull out our suction hose and we recap whatever we didn't use, and nothing goes down the drain. So that's been a great advantage for us. Not necessarily with the chemical manufacturers, but I won't go there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the other thing is it's you say the grain again, the aging, people who know how to do this. It's a skill set too. It is definitely people who know how to put floor finish down. They take great pride in what they do, and those who have a great floor team are proud of that floor team they have because it is a skill set to sling a mop and really put that floor down evenly. First of all, second of all, not sling it on the baseboard so you create more work downstream. So that next generation coming in, that skill set will most likely with technology with like yourself, you're presenting is going to be lost in some regards, but at the same time, the efficiencies of scale and speed and consistency is going to be achieved. So again, I think the Ultra Tracks is, those who haven't looked at it, again, I'll put show notes up there and a video of what it is. I think it's a no-brainer for most institutions that are out there that have long hallways, large amounts of rooms that put finish down. But talk to me too, because the industry's shifting. We talked about that a little bit as well before the podcast started, but that shifting of people pulling up VCT and putting down concrete or putting down whatever else. What do the luxury vinyl tile? What is your game plan around those shifts, those
Yeah,
changes?
what I see is we actually were at the World of Concrete show in January, not that long ago, believe it or not, and we're seeing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of larger companies looking at the total cost of ownership for flooring, and what's happening is that in certain situations they're pulling the VCT up and they're basically working with that concrete. And what they'll do is they'll basically cut off, if I can use that term, the first quarter inch of that they call it the cream that's on that concrete. So if there's any mastic on there, they're going to cut that right with diamonds. They use diamonds or carbide blades to cut that and clean up whatever's there. Then they go through a series of polishings, right? So once that substrate's clean of any mastic, then what they do is they'll go in, they'll use our applicator to put down different types of, they call them densifiers or hardeners. There's sodium, potassium, lithium silicates. What happens is those chemicals interact with the free calcium, magnesium molecules in the existing Portland cement and basically hardens that surface up to where now they can come back on after they've done that application, and they start with a series of grindings to basically begin to polish that floor. And once they bring it back to, it depends how many steps they use. It could be anywhere from 5 steps to maybe 12 steps. With different types of abrasives, they get a very shiny, I'll call it a very tight floor, which basically is maintenance free, which is kind of the trend that you'll see in some of the national retailers. I do have some contacts, obviously, and you look at some of the national retailers, they're pulling the VCT and they're polishing concrete. But I'll go back and say to my old school days, you can still take a traditional vinyl floor if you know what you're doing and you have the right tools. you can still compete against that concrete floor, but it just takes a different mindset, right? So the younger
Yeah.
generation, I think, is a little bit more astute than that. I mean, I know that when we first started the business, when you bought the unit, you got a paper manual. Right now, when anybody gets one of our All-Track Pluses, you take your phone and you hit the QR code, and up comes the training that shows the person how to use the unit and gives you, tips and tips of the trade, and then that way they have a resource that they could always refer back to, because we want to make sure that we make the education a part of what we do, and that's important. It is.
It's key. It's critical. Critical. Well, speak on that a little bit. Okay, everybody can say we'll save you time. Everybody knows that time is money, but also that the head count down. But what kind of ROI are you seeing on these pieces out there when you go into let's just say a school system, and you go in and let's just say they're going to be, what is a good school system? Let's just say it's you give me a count, but how many floor techs do they have putting floors down? Or stripping floors down first of all, then putting floors down, and what kind of ROI can we see on the old way of doing things versus the
It's
new
funny
way?
you say that, because when we first started the business, we had an Excel spreadsheet with a calculator, right? And we said, here's ISSA's figures, labor, here's ours, here's the chemical savings. And to be very frank with you, not too many people worked on that sheet, because once they saw the machine in operation, they had it. They didn't
Yep.
care. It was transformational, right? I mean, for some people, you know what, it was, making it easier was worth its weight in gold, and others was like, well, we're using less finish, right? And then others would say, we get such a better result. We did a demonstration in Kansas about 10 years ago, and this one stands out in my mind because it was, to your point, it was a summer in Kansas. It was hot as can be and humid, and we went in and got to know the superintendents. And to make a long story short, we got done, waiting for wax to dry, right? And when we got done, he goes, "We've never seen the floors look this nice after what you did." Because we were able to adjust the machine on the last coat, right? Because it was taking an hour to an hour and a half to dry, right? So on the last coat, we were able
Mm-hmm.
to, with the technology, actually move the flow rate up on that machine and put a little bit of more heavier coat on the last coat. When they came in the next day, he goes, the floors have never looked that good. So those are some of the things that come into play. But oftentimes, though, when people see this in operation or they use it, it's game set match, because it's just, there's so many benefits. And again, some people are all about the chemical savings, which really, chemical savings doesn't really drive the ROI. It's really the labor. So yeah, we've done some, some time studies with some very large companies, but they don't necessarily share that information with us. But they would not buy the equipment unless they knew that it was going to bring forth some type of savings. And then also
Yeah.
workman's comp issues. I mean, you're less prone to slip and fall with this, because you're walking and you're not worrying about, walking back in your finish. So there's a lot of other benefits that come into play. So it's a moving target, so to speak. But people just love what we have, and if it's not innovative or doesn't offer an ROI, we're not going to get behind it. Which leads me to the fact that we have another applicator called the Microtrack Plus. If we can talk about that, or we can wait.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing is, we've been in the business for 22 years, but we had a lot of people say, well, we love your applicator, but what about our smaller facilities? And we never had a solution until this year. We came up with Microtrack Plus, which is a smaller device that holds a gallon and a half, and basically has a little solution tank and a lever. And you can do, around, I'd say, about 7,000 square foot per hour with that. And I think the mop is 3, so it's about 1.5, 2 times quicker than a regular mop. And again, it's got the same distribution manifold, so you squeeze it and it releases, and basically you walk it around, do your edges and corners in small areas. And again, you can use your chemical of choice in that. So we're actually talking to a national retailer that has a lot of turnover with their people. So they're like, you know what, we need something that's kind of quick and easy. What do you have? So right now we're going
Yeah.
through a test of a national retailer, because in that environment, as you know, sometimes they don't give you the whole store, right? They might give you, 3 or 4 or 5 aisles, and then they have to stock. So we've been in this for a long time. So we engineer things around the needs based benefits that people are looking for. So that one is going to be a smash for us as well. And again, that's our innovation, and I love the Microtrack Plus.
I love it. I love the idea. I love what I like about you, Mark. I was checking your website. I'm getting kind of up to date with everything you're doing, and we'll talk about other cool things you're doing as well. But you do something pretty novel that I think more manufacturers should be doing, and hence this podcast. But you're doing virtual demos as well, because you're everywhere. You can be everywhere, but you're not everywhere. So how do you get those individuals that want to see this technology? If they can't get hands on because they, time wise, whatever it may be, but what are you doing innovative on that side? So if I'm XYZ school system, XYZ hospital, whoever it may be, retail store, and I go to your website and I see the connection for an online demo. What's going on with that now?
Well, what we're doing now is actually contracted with a company up in Canada. We're actually doing 3D avatar type of training. We did this for a project about 5 years ago, and then this project that we're working on now with this national retailer is going to involve us having one of their workers being virtual. In other words, it'll have the company name on the lapel of the person using it, and it'll show that person
Mm-hmm.
using the MicroTrack Plus, right? And it'll have whatever that name. I can't tell you the name of the national retailer on the shirt. It'll have the company color, and then it'll have this avatar showing people, how to do certain things, and it's much more effective than it would be having an old guy like me on a video, right, showing you how to bend it over when I got my butt in your face, right? So this is kind of, I'd say, more futuristic, because the younger generation, right, that they want to see those type of imageries, because it really kind of plays into the whole gaming mindset, right? Because we know with the younger
Sure.
generation, they see things differently than we do. So we feel that's going to be really exciting. So that's going to be part of our presentation once we get the validation. We actually passed the safety committee so far with that. They said, well, ergonomically, this makes sense, because if we use this application technology, we should be able to reduce our workman's comp claims by X amount of dollars. So you have risk management that gets involved. So we're trying to put that together for them, so when they get the unit themselves, if the rep is not there at 2 o'clock in the morning, that person can take his or her phone, hit that code, and up comes a little animation, which is really, really nicer than it would be a traditional video, and it'll give them, the tips of the trade, and walk them through it. And then if that person's not there for that day, or there's a turnover, the next person can take their phone and they can learn how to use the device correctly. So I think that's going to be real important. That's kind of part of where we're heading. And that's the
I
direction we're
love it.
taking. So that content should be coming up for us. I'm thinking in the next 60 days we should have that ready for that national retailer, so they can look at it, because I think that's going to really carry us over, because there's a lot of locations, and the chemical sales rep cannot be at every location, right? Especially at that time of night. And as you know, with your background, there's only so many hours, minutes in the day that you can do that. So those are some exciting things. So we're trying to stay up at the times as it relates to that, and it's an investment, and I think it's a well worth investment, because I want people to be successful at the end of it.
No, absolutely. I think, like you said, the chemical manufacturers can be out there. And quite honestly, less and less chemical manufacturers are doing late demos as well. That's not, to your point, everyone's so conscious on driving down the cost of the products. There's not enough profit to get, back when I started in the business, 20 something years ago, I'd probably do at least 10 or 15, late night demos on floor care. And I didn't want to do it, but I knew there was a nice payday at the end of those. But the reality is the margins are being, everybody's so focused on driving down the cost of products. And I think, to your point, that the paradigm shift has to happen on the labor, the liability, the time, all these other things they're not thinking about, versus what is my cost per gallon of floor finish. And again, really putting a program in place that maybe doesn't require you to strip every year as well would be huge. So all innovative stuff. I'm going to definitely put the show notes on this one. I do want to take a dive in too, because I see you every year and we kind of shoot the gab a little bit at ISSA, but you're always out there looking for next level innovation outside of the hard floor care. And again, you've got some other things out there, but tell the audience overall, tell the audience, but what are some of the other things that you're really kind of pushing toward? Where do you see the industry going? Where do you see new technology, new innovation that you're finding and bringing to market out there? What's impressed me a little bit on that?
Well, we're approached on many fronts from different people about. I work with a lot of inventors, right, that think that they have the next $1 million idea and say, I have a patent, and and they think they've got the next idea. And so we've really tried to open up our doors to try to incubate and speak to people that are looking to jump into the industry. So over the years, we've got a lot of people approach us. I've actually invited a lot of people to come to our ISSA shows and show their products so they didn't have to pay the membership in the booth. I said, listen, I'd love to help you because somebody was there to help me back in the day, and it's good, always good to pay your time and your resources forward to other people. But with that being said, the newest innovation is one that that's not necessarily in the floor care space, but it's actually in the hand hygiene and restroom sanitation space. And I'll be brief. It's called Pebble, and Pebble is a device that's coming out of Europe that is used to basically dry somebody's hands in a bathroom. But not only that, it actually has high filtration built into the device. It has UVC that actually kills any airborne pathogens in the air, and then it also creates ionization, which actually kind of VOCs and actually freshens up and cleans the air. So here you have a very dirty environment, restroom care, right? And nobody's really come out with the innovation of that. So when I spoke to the CEO, he says, I like what you're doing with your company because everything you have is different and unique. I go, well, that's kind of our mantra, right? We want to bring innovation to people, and if we can't innovate, we're not just going to settle for something that doesn't work. So this is a really unique project that we just actually placed our first order, and all the marketing's done on it, but it's going to offer restroom patrons another level of cleanliness. And I think that's going to be real exciting for us. I mean, I've put it past quite a few people that I've known for the last 20 years, and they said that's genius. So that's what we do. We always have an open door, an open policy, and then we would like to bring different innovations. So if it's something that's beneficial to the public, we're all in. And obviously on the floor care space, we have some three-dimensional scrub brushes. So again, our website kind of really is a great place to look and see what we're all about. And then obviously there's videos and such. But yeah, the Pebble is not up on the website yet, but that's something that we just signed off on Monday actually. So we're always looking for.
What's the time frame on that one, Mark? Are you looking to have that into?
Yeah, we're probably 2 months out. Yeah, I mean, we have all the marketing's done, which is really nice. I mean, there's some great marketing resources, some great there's an animation video on that showing the air coming into the device and showing that we're actually killing anything that's actually lands in the filter, and then we have a 99.8% log on filtration, and we're creating these ions that go out and they attach themselves to anything that's airborne, and it literally freshens up the bathroom. So and obviously bathrooms are an incubator of germs and disease, right? So people are concerned about COVID, about anything else that's coming down the pipe. So giving a client a level of cleanliness where we're actually filtering and sanitizing the air, I think is a huge opportunity for us. So it's definitely something that gets me excited because it's something that's not here and it's needed because of what everybody is. There was an article I want to say in Cleaning Management about they did a survey about patrons being concerned about air quality, right? And then it's on everybody's radar screen because look at the last 3 years, everybody was wearing masks, right? So we can't never say that there's not an airborne transmission of these diseases because when you're in a bathroom, you flush a toilet, you get what's called toilet plume, right? And you've got C. diff and different E. coli floating in the air. Those are pathogens that aren't being treated. Well, now we can treat that air in that space. And what's unique about that device is once you say you dry your hands, the device, the filtration system runs for an hour after the last person that's in there. So it literally will run for an hour, shut off for an hour, run for an hour, but it'll always filter the air when you're in there drying your hands. So it's exciting. So really, it floored me. It really did. It's a paradigm shift because there's a lot of dryers out there. But again, this one here, I think is going to be a big hit for us. So we're always looking for the next innovation for sure.
No, it's as you were talking about innovation. I don't know if you remember. You gave me this actually a few years ago. If you remember the remember that?
Yeah, scuff tool. Yeah.
For those that aren't aware, everybody's seen a tennis ball on the end of a stick, and people are taking off the black heel marks on floor finish. And this here, you basically attach it to your belt loop, and you throw it down, and you grab your foot, and you basically it's the tennis ball that's flat that you basically hang on your belt loop. So I was looking at that as you were telling me because I remember getting that from Vegas from you a few years ago, I think it was. But anyway. No, innovative stuff there. I think just out of interest, like what are you looking for? Because I'm sure there'll be people who are on here going, I've got the wrong air filtration system, not the air filtration, but the air dryer now doesn't do anything other than blow air and recirculate air, and it's probably not the healthiest. So I've either got to change that or I've got to go to paper. This technology, what kind of client are you looking for? Are you looking for people who are looking to retrofit existing,
I would say,
wall-mounted air dryers as well as paper,
I would
guys?
say this again. I hate to drop names, but there are existing air dryers that are out there that are horrible. I mean, there's one. I'll use the word blade, okay, and I'll leave it at that. Where you stick your hand inside it, right, and then the air blows, and then what happens is all the water stays inside the device, and it looks green and black, and it's the most unhygienic thing I've ever seen in my life. So yeah, changing out existing air dryers that'd be fantastic. Because I would say this, but I've got some representation on the East Coast, and I think most facilities, and I can ask you your opinion, Jack. I think most facilities offer both paper and air, right? Give you both options. So some people, would prefer one over the other. But the cool part about ours is that the device is going to run every 12 hours as far as doing the air filtration, whether you use that device or you use paper. So you have a two-in-one system built into the hygiene side of the restroom. So I don't see any downside to what we have, because I think some people would put it in just to have it there. It gives people an option to use it for drying their hands. But if they don't, guess what? You're going to have air filtration, purification taking place inside that restroom, which I think is huge. So I think people are going to have a hard time saying no to us. So yeah, existing facilities, change out the ones that are in there. There's a lot of them that are out there that are still touch button, where you have to touch it, which is terrible because everything is going touchless, right, hands free. So I see nothing but huge potential for this. And again, we know that there's a paper industry out there that's huge, bigger than life, right? You got some of the big behemoths out there that are gonna maybe feel threatened by this, but we're saying, hey, well, let's play fair in the sandbox. Let's offer the public both. But with our solution, they get air purification and filtration, which is a phenomenal attribute, because nobody has it. That's why this company that approached us they're doing very, very, very well overseas. They just said, hey, we want to jump in the U.S. market, but we're so busy. We're just looking for the right partner. And I convinced them that I would.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I convinced them that that we've got a brand that we've established over the last 22 years, that it's nothing but innovation. So I think it fits into what we do. But if people want to give us a call or work with us, we'll either work through a distribution with them, or we'll work with them one-on-one. Whatever works best for the customer, we're going to do the right thing at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, definitely drop me, if you have a photo, definitely drop me an email with a photo on it, and I'll put that a part of the show notes, as well as I'll do a screenshot of that as we're talking about it. But no, innovative stuff. And again, creative things like that out there. I joke, but I'm serious, but half the battle is just getting people to wash their hands so they can order to dry them, whether it be paper or an air dryer. So, that's a whole nother conversation, which is another podcast, another episode. But is there anything else out there, trends, industry moves that you're making and that excites you? And again, I think you're dead on with, I won't go back too far, but HVAC and I guess the air quality. I just spoke with someone last week and we talked about air quality and the intention that's grabbing to get people back into the office, feel safe, secure within, not only the bathroom, but their office space as well. But what other trends are you seeing out there that you're starting to kind of develop some strategies around that maybe we're not thinking about right now?
I think robotics is on our screen as well. We're working on a robotic project with the University of Florida, actually, on some vacuuming technology. I think is going to be pretty significant too. So there's a lot going on in our world. It's just hard to focus on what's the best project to work on. But there's a lot of good things happening out in the marketplace for sure. We're excited because we always want to keep things fresh and unique and different. But I think, the aging workforce, efficiencies, total cost of ownership for floors, all that is on our radar screen. So we're going to continue to push in that direction for sure.
Well, I love it. Autonomous is not going away. Definitely, if anything, it's moving the industry forward much quicker than years past. I love the fact that people look at it and they're just saying it's a very expensive piece of equipment, and I'm going, well, if you think about it right now, that vacuum, let's just say that you're maybe working on the vacuum has a cost associated, whether to buy it as well as to operate it. But then if you think about it, there's someone behind it. You're paying a pretty significant salary just to push it around, which is crazy to think about, that we're still in that space. So I think as people start to think about these autonomous units, what I'm stressing to do is look at it as an FTE. Don't look at it as a piece of equipment that's very expensive. Look at it as somebody that doesn't show up sick, is on time, consistent in their performance, and then take your personnel that you really want to value and really want to, what's the term? I guess elevate, put them into more detailed type of, projects that are customer facing that really drive value within those accounts. So, any other comments on that?
In the carpet space, we do have another unit called the Fas-Trak. So this is something that we've rolled out as well. So it's a lithium-ion 28-inch all-surface vacuum machine that we have. It's not a sweeper. It's a vacuum, and those of us that are in the industry realize there's a difference between a sweeper and a vacuum. So we actually have HEPA filtration. We have 2 lithium-ion batteries on board, so there's no cord, and it's 28 inches. So you basically hit the foot switch, adjust the cantilever, and you can literally do 30,000 square foot of vacuuming, whether it's a gym floor, it could be a VCT floor, it could be carpeting. So it's an all surface device. And I got to tell you, that's something that's really gotten a lot of play from us lately, because people are looking at, how do I get this vacuuming done? So I don't want to be tethered to a cord. I don't want to have something on my back. I want to have something that I can adjust where it's actually brush assist. So you adjust it to the various surfaces, and you literally can knock out that kind of square footage. Actually sold one to my church yesterday, as a matter of fact, because I don't like doing business with a church, but I go, you got to see this, right? And if you don't buy it, I'm okay with it. But once you see it, sure enough, he said, we'll take it. And I said, okay, that's fine to go. I'm glad you like it, because I'll probably give most of it back to you anyhow. But it was just it's a confirmation, that we've got something that's so unique, and nobody has that technology as well. I mean, there's sweepers out there, but again, this is where the education comes into play. There's, what is the difference between sweeping and vacuuming? What does that look like? And what can it do? What is the ROI? You have 2 batteries. Why do you have 2 batteries? Because once the first battery is depleted, then you can take that battery off, charge it, and use the second battery, right, for an hour and a half. Yep. And after that, you can literally run that unit 24 hours a day. And it's lithium ion, which, as you know, Jack, is the future. So it addresses those issues. So you're seeing, trends in engineering, but that machine for us is going to be a huge hit for us as well, because people are looking for better methods. They don't have the people, right? And it's only 70 pounds, and it's brush assist. So when you use it, you literally just kind of walk it around, and it's very maneuverable, very easy to use. And then we have HEPA filtration on it as well. It holds 1.5 bushels of debris, so you're not having to worry about dirt cups and all these little filter bags that people use when they're using upright vacuum cleaners, which everybody still uses. So yeah, those are the things that get us excited, right? Because we know that if people see it and use it, they're going to be very, very happy, right? They're going to save time and money and make life easier for their staff. So that's the road that we pursue every day.
No, I love it, and I'd say your website. Rattle out your website address, because I'll put that on the show notes. But is it fasttrack.com, right?
FASTRAKIND.com.
Yep. FAS-TRAK.com. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you guys, if you're listening, you kind of like to see just innovative things that are cutting edge, next level. Some things are a little bit ahead of their time, but Mark's ahead of this game. He's looking around the world, as he mentioned. He's meeting the vendors who are bringing things to the market. But if you get a chance, you've got to check out the website and take a look at the demos he's putting together, the content he has out there with regards to the videos. It just answers so many questions when you start watching these videos, and it creates some questions as well. And I think what I love about Mark is the guy gives his personal phone out, and he'll call himself the VP of sales, but he's the owner of the company, and he answers the phone all the time, and he loves doing demos. I think you're probably one of the old school guys that still love doing demos, and I love that about you. So
thank you.
Also LinkedIn, you're also on CleanSquare, so the CleanSquare community. What I want to do, Mark, is wrap up here, and I appreciate you again coming on the podcast. Maybe we can, as the Pebble comes out, I would love to have maybe a little more dedicated conversation around that, and maybe make it a virtual demo. But any closing comments or suggestions out there on how to reach out to you, or when to reach out to you, or
I'd say
any other thoughts?
You can reach out to us via the website, or Mark at FASTRAKIND.com. Our phone number is 708-570-0650. And my cell number, I have no problem with that, 708-250-5465. We have solutions that we know can change your life and make life easier for you, and save a lot of money and time and aggravation.
There's one guy in the business that's passionate about the business, who loves the business. And quite honestly, I think, I'll wrap up with this, Mark, but if you had to look at the number of hours you've saved people over the years you've been in the business, I think that would be just one huge number. So hats off to you and what you're doing with Fas-Traks. I appreciate, again, you being on the podcast. Hopefully we can do this again in the near future. And if I can ever do anything for you in the future, let me know as well. But thank you again, sir.
Thanks, Jack. Have a great day. Thank you, everybody.